We've got a trio of student athletes on our next Three Pillars Roundtable. They all participated in peaceful protests over the last few months. We've got Sean Sutherland, a senior, New Brighton, Minnesota native, playing for UNH men's basketball. Solomon Iluyomade, a junior, playing for the men's basketball team at Maine. He's from London, England. And Kristi King, who is a senior at UMass Lowell, playing women's lacrosse. She's from Severn, Maryland. Each of these student athletes have participated, like I said, in peaceful protests, actually, for the most part, near their hometowns and or campus. In Solomon's case, he was in those protests right after the George Floyd murder in Maine. Kristi was on the more recent side of things, participating in the 2020 March on Washington, not too far from her hometown. And Sean Sutherlin actually participated in some peaceful protests and also the cleanup of his home city in Minneapolis, which obviously was kind of the pinnacle of this whole thing a few months ago. So I'll open it up to you three to just kind of give me a gauge of where your emotions have been over the last summer months, if you will, and what kind of compelled each of you to get involved in these protests and be active in your communities. And I'll start with you, Solomon.
For me, I recently just had a surgery, so I didn't get the opportunity to go home. And I've just been here, and when the George Floyd murder happened, there was just like a huge range of emotions. I was angry, I was really sad. It was just devastating, and I didn't really understand beforehand how out of hand it had gotten, But I feel like being here instead of being in England gave me a huge perspective in just understanding that things need to change. And so that striked why I went personally. And it happened a week after. So I had a lot of time to process it and, let the flood of emotions just come out. And I just felt like it's something I had to do. It really meant a lot to me. I was there on crutches, limping all the way. We went for a couple miles, but I just thought it was very important and something that needed to be done.
Yeah, so after the George Floyd thing happened, it kind of touched close to my heart because it was in my hometown. So I felt like I needed to do something. So a group of me and my friends, we got together and we came up with the idea to try to clean up the city a little bit. So we got a group about 50 people, and we went into the city about 3 or 4 days after everything calmed down, after all the looting and the protests. We went into the city and we cleaned up the buildings, cleaned up the streets, and we just tried to do anything we could to make our city look like it was. That was a huge thing for me, just because it felt so close to home, just because I'm always in Minneapolis and I have interactions with police officers, not to that extent, but it felt like it could have been me or anybody that's Black in America. So it was just big that I wanted to try to do something. So it was good that me and my friends got together and did that.
I can definitely say, so I've been protesting since May, and I actually organized a couple protests. And I think that, I've always been very involved in the community and very vocal about issues that the Black community faces. And so I think that the back-to-back public killings of these innocent, Black citizens, it kind of ignited a fire in me, because usually I just do a lot of, on my social media, I'll try to educate people through that platform, but I wanted to go out and actually take action and organize my own protests and get my own community together, whether that be, I organized a protest in Florida, but I'm from Maryland. So going to the march in Washington was amazing to me, because 57 years later, we're in the same spot that MLK was, where he gave his speech, his I Have a Dream speech. And just, it was very reflective, being in that moment and seeing all these thousands and thousands of people from all over the country here for the same thing that we were here for 57 years ago. So it is, on one hand, it's beautiful to see all these different people come together from different walks of life. And here we are months after these killings. But on the other hand, it's but we're still here. We're still having to come together, driving from miles away to come together and protest and march and all of this in the middle of a pandemic. So it is a lot. There's a lot of emotions that I can say I've been experiencing over the last couple of months.
I've reached out to a bunch of officers. In the past, I've had issues with police officers, but like at UMaine, I have no issues with any officers. I know officers know me by my first name. I know them by their first name. I go to school with some of these officers' kids, and so they've always been nice to me. So I felt like I needed to take that hand that they were giving me, just in the back of my mind and reach and talk to them about what they think is going on. And I've had a broad understanding of what they think is happening right now. And so I thought that was necessary. And not only that, with my teammates, they came with me. I had a bunch of my teammates come to these marches. Vilgard Larson was here, so he came with me. Otto Turbuett, he was a redshirt last year, came with me, and a bunch of other kids from different sports felt the need to go too. I saw a lot of them. I also got the chance to talk at one of these protests in a nearby town.
In this conference, all of our schools are predominantly white institutions, so PWIs, and for that reason, maybe not everybody has experienced being in a culturally diverse atmosphere or being around Black people. That's just the reality of the situation.
To a PWI, first of all, I didn't realize that was a term, but going to a PWI, there's a bunch of people that have reached out to me asking me about what it's like to be Black at the University of Maine. And they've been like, wow, really? That's the response. And I feel like I've had to step out of my comfort zone and just, crawling up in a ball about my color and what it's like and tell those people, because they don't know what it's like, you know what I mean? And I can't expect them to know what it's like to be Black in America.
Well, I think that the first step for everybody is just to educate ourselves. Once we educate ourselves, the next step is really just to start a conversation. It could be with anybody. I think these conversations are great just because we're given our perspective on things. And I think that once you educate yourself, it's good to have conversations, like he said, with people that don't think like us, like have conversations with police officers to pick their minds and get what they think out of things. And it's just a huge thing, especially going to a PWI. I think that it should be mandatory that everybody takes like a Black history class, just so everybody knows like what we go through and the history of what we've been going through in America. I think that could be a good next step.
I'm on the lacrosse team, which is, majority white. There are, very few members of color. So giving us that opportunity to educate our peers is very important to her. So we've actually been, for a couple of weeks, about 6 weeks, we were meeting weekly via Zoom to discuss, a piece of literature or a documentary or something like that, just educating on issues that the Black community faces. So having these spaces where we're educating people who may not necessarily will get that education, ever. I think that everything that's going on right now has definitely brought to the table these conversations that need to be had and should have been had, years ago.